Earlier this month, Science Friday visited Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
When you think of Wisconsin, a few things do come to mind. There's the cheese, the Green Bay Packers, the Milwaukee Brewers, and of course, beer.
For research, we decided to visit a local brewery to find out how beer is made. Our tour guide is Russ Klisch, president of Lakefront Brewery in Milwaukee. He says there are 4 basic ingredients in beer: barley, water, hops, and yeast. Let's start with the barley.
The farmer will harvest that barley corn, clean it and grate it, bring it into a maltster.
A maltster takes barley and turns it into malt by soaking it in water and letting it sprout.
When the sprout starts coming out, what the maltster will do is he'll drain out the water, heat up the seed, tumble off the sprout, and this is what you end up with. And it's called malt. Same type of malt that goes in malted milk balls, malted milkshake, malto-meal, all those different things.
Caramelizing the barley will produce a different flavor of beer.
No, it's a little more crunchier, a little more sweeter.
You can also roast it for darker beers.
And the process of this is very similar to making coffee.
So, to summarize, the darker the malt, the darker the beer. The stuff in the bags are specialty malts that Klisch buys, but most of his malted barley comes in through that silo. The next step is crushing it.
That's what this machine does over here.
Next, the crushed grain gets mixed with water and goes into this kettle called the mash tun.
The grain and water slurry that goes into here is referred to as the mash.
And the water in the mash has to be just the right temperature.
So if you don't get the temperature just right, you don't get the sugar in your beer, which means you don't get the alcohol in the beer later.
Which would be bad. The mash is then sent to this kettle, called the lauter tun, where it's rinsed and strained. The liquid is now called sweet wort, and it's ready for the hops.
So hops give the beer its bitterness. So if you have a very bitter beer, you have a beer with a lot of hops in it. If you have a very sweet beer, you have like maybe a Bock beer or an Oktoberfest, that beer has a lot of malt in it.
Now it's time for the 4th ingredient, the yeast.
The yeast has itself a big old party in there for about, have to put the yeast in for about 7 to 10 days, because all it really does is eat and have sex with itself and split in half.
The yeast is key. Remember, it eats the sugars and produces the alcohol that you get in beer.
And after about 7 to 10 days, the party's kind of over. It kind of rolls over, goes to sleep, and falls to bomb the tank.
Carbon dioxide is also produced during fermentation. In fact, there are hoses coming from these vats to let out the excess CO2. What yeast Klisch decides to use actually determines whether the beer will be an ale or a lager.
Ales are typically more of a drier, crisper beer, and ales are more fruitier in flavor. And so that is determined from the yeast. Yeast imparts a large flavor into and character into the beer.
Now for the kegging process, and incidentally, the origin of the word bunghole.
The wooden plug, I'm not making this up, the technical name of it is called the bung. And of course, it gets pounded into a bung hole. And that's the actual name of the keg.
Klisch wasn't bottling today, but he turned on the machines for us anyway. The bottles start in the rinser, then to the filler and crowner, then the labeler.
Before we bottle, of course, we pray to our patron saints of brewing here. See if I can do this.
He means Milwaukee's own Laverne and Shirley.
We got the song up here.
I'm Flora Lichtman for Science Friday.